Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's story came in from the Brain Scratch community, a member named Until Tomorrow, and is called Last Thanksgiving. Joel and Lisa Guy had enjoyed 31 years of marriage. Together, they had a blended family of 4. Their son, Joel Jr., known as Joel Michael, and Joel Sr.'s 3 daughters from a previous marriage, Chandice, Michelle, and Angela. Both worked in engineering, Joel as an engineering designer and Lisa as an accounts payable administrator for a local engineering company in Tennessee. Known for their kind-hearted and compassionate ways, Joel and Lisa rarely spent any time apart. While they enjoyed their children and grandchildren, their love of nature and the water frequently took just the 2 of them on small trips and vacations. In November of 2016, they planned to host a big family Thanksgiving in their home in Knoxville, Tennessee, before moving to a new house in a new town. They had decided it was finally time to retire. All of the children would be there. Joel Michael had recently quit college after attending LSU for 9 years. He would be driving from his home in Baton Rouge, and his half-sisters and their families traveled there to be together for the holiday. Everyone enjoyed Thanksgiving on the 24th, visiting and playing with the children while enjoying all the holiday food. Even Joel Michael, who usually kept to himself in the room his parents maintained for him, was talkative and outgoing. After the meal, the sisters loaded up their families and returned home to have their own dinners, while Joel Michael chose to stay and spend the weekend with his parents. On the 28th, the holiday weekend was over, and everyone started to return to work. Lisa's boss was surprised when Lisa failed to show up for her job. She was very punctual, and her coworkers knew she would have called if someone was sick. When her employer could get no answer at the Guy home, they called the police and asked them to conduct a welfare check on the couple. When officers arrived, they could see both of the family vehicles in the driveway. As they peered into the windows and the glass of the locked front door of the home, they could see groceries strewn across the floor. The back door of the house was missing its doorknob, and they could feel a tremendous amount of heat escaping around the doors, along with an odd chemical smell. Luckily, one of the family cars still contained its garage door opener, and the officers were able to use that to access the house. The first thing that struck them, along with the intense heat, was the chemical odor they had noticed at that back door. In the house, it was so strong it made their foreheads tingle. As they proceeded down the hall, they could see blood spatter on the walls, and at the end, an open doorway with a pair of human hands that weren't connected to a body. Once they knew the house was clear of any attackers, they waited for backup to arrive. Investigators found that the house's thermostat had been turned up to 90 degrees. Then, wall unit heaters were plugged in, bringing the temperature up to 93 degrees. In the master bedroom, they found 2 large 45-gallon plastic containers. When they were opened, they were found to contain human remains covered in a corrosive chemical that was liquefying them. Numerous bottles of bleach were also found, obviously for an attempted cleanup that hadn't been carried out yet. But it was the stove that offered the most gruesome discovery. In a pot, still boiling, they found a severed head. An autopsy would show that they did indeed have the bodies of Joel and Lisa Guy. According to WVLT.TV, Joel had 42 sharp force injuries. Some of the injuries caused damage to the lungs, liver, and kidneys, with one wound to his shoulder so severe that a fragment of the weapon was left in the muscle tissue. Other injuries showed that Joel put up quite a fight before his death. They knew he had probably injured his attacker. However, they could find no DNA evidence on the bodies that could be used to help identify the culprit. Lisa was stabbed 31 times, but showed the most violent trauma. It was her head that was removed. Investigators now went about the task of locating the children and questioning them. All 3 daughters confirmed that they had spent the holiday with their parents and half-brother, but grew concerned when they heard that Joel Michael had not been located yet. They told investigators that they knew from recent conversations with their father that he and Lisa had enough of supporting Joel Michael, who had never gotten a job of his own. After 9 years of studying plastic surgery, they were through and planned to make a fresh start in their retirement. They claimed that were it not for Joel Michael, their mother would have quit working years ago. They even planned to pack up the room they kept for Joel Michael at their home and not continue the tradition of having him have his own room at their new house. Investigators knew they had to find and interview Joel Michael. As investigators worked to track the man down, they continued to review additional evidence. Footage from the local Walmart showed Lisa leaving there about noon on Saturday, the 26th. Investigators believe that her attacker ambushed her at the top of the second-floor stairs as she returned home with her groceries, as some of the items never made it to the refrigerator. That same CCTV footage would give them another big clue. Just 4 hours after his mother left, Joel Michael is seen entering the same Walmart and buying tape and medical supplies. They found their most telling piece of evidence in Joel Michael's room. In his backpack, investigators found a notebook with a detailed breakdown of his parents' assets. Written beside information about Lisa's life insurance were the words, "With him gone, it will be all mine." They also found a detailed account of how the murder would take place. Quote, "Kill him with a knife," and "kill her with a knife" were two of the entries read, along with a reminder to send a text from her phone to send to me late Sunday. Joel Michael detailed that this would give him an alibi that would prove that he was in Baton Rouge and she was still alive. After that, things only got worse as their son speculated on other ways to dispose of evidence, some more violent and gruesome than others. The search for Joel Michael wouldn't take long. On Tuesday, November the 29th, he was arrested outside his apartment in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He had returned home on the 27th after deciding that the injuries he had sustained in the attack needed medical attention, and he sought treatment at the LSU Student Clinic. It was another 4 years before Joel Michael's trial would begin in late September of 2020. During 4 days of testimony, prosecutors argued that they believe the couple told Guy they were cutting him off financially. In anger, he enacted the plan he had outlined in his notebook. Videos were reviewed of Guy buying several of the supplies used in the murder in Louisiana before his trip that Thanksgiving. They also showed that before he could complete the cleanup of the scene, described as so awful it traumatized first responders, he drove back to Louisiana for medical treatment. He chose to leave the heat on in the hopes that it would speed up the decomposition process and destroy any fingerprints. The defense argued that the family's own testimony showed that Guy had been friendly and outgoing that Thanksgiving holiday. They also argued that handwriting analysis on the notebook needed to be completed, even though it was taken from Guy's bag and had his DNA all over it. None of the defense's arguments worked, and after only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury reached their unanimous decision. On Friday, October 2nd, 2020, they found Joel Michael Guy Jr. guilty of killing and dismembering his parents and sentenced him to 5 life sentences. His charges include 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count of felony murder for killing Lisa Guy while committing the first-degree murder of Joel Guy Sr., and 2 counts of felony murder while committing theft. He'll return to court on November 19th to have the court decide if his 5 life sentences, with the possibility of parole after 51 years, will be served at the same time or consecutively. They will also establish sentencing on counts 6 and 7, which are both abuse of a corpse. Before Guy was led to jail, his family gave their victim impact statements. They spoke of their grief over their loss and thanked everyone involved for bringing closure to some of their suffering. During it all, Guy sat with no expression, only occasionally drinking from a water bottle. Lisa's brother explained how their mother had been hospitalized days after the 2016 murders. She never exited the hospital, he said. The loss of her child was difficult for her, one that I hope I never have to endure, but to find out your daughter was murdered by your own grandchild was heartbreaking, he stated. Unfortunately, she passed away one day after the funeral she was unable to attend. As he finished, he told the court, "She truly died of a broken heart." Case cracked. Thank you to WVLT.TV, WBIR.com, Boston 25 News, GentryGriffey.com, and KIRO7. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is now to discuss it with us. Hey, Christy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I understand this was probably a pretty tough case to look into. The whole family thing is just mind-blowing, and it really wrecks my heart. I don't know about you.
Yeah, this one was definitely tough.
Yeah. Especially coming up around the holidays, and, we're all thinking about spending time with people we love, and to just, a story like this, just, it's literally a living nightmare.
It is, and the details aren't like any that I've ever seen before, at least aside from some of the harshest ones I've read about.
Yeah, and do know that we kind of weeded some of that down a little bit for our interpretation of it. There are some very significant details out there. If you want to look into it more for yourself, you can. We just don't want to kind of glorify that type of action, and I just want to be sure to give you guys the basics of the story that we need to understand how it was truly solved. So one of the other things that I found kind of mind-blowing, I looked into this case a little bit for myself, was that plan that he had. First of all, the fact that he left it behind, which I think is maybe an indicator that he might have been dealing with some severe, I don't know if it's an emotional disorder or something along those lines, but you looked into it. Did you see any mention of the defense making some type of run at an insanity plea?
I didn't see anything about the defense team working very hard at all on this case, which is surprising. There was no insanity plea, nothing like that. It was just a not guilty plea and their half defense that they offered, and that was it.
Yeah. It's kind of strange to me because you've got him with a detailed 5-page plan that, first of all, he doesn't, in terms of running the plan, yeah, he commits the murders, but all the cleanup efforts and all that stuff just seems to stop. And I saw pictures of the wounds, and yeah, while there are a couple of serious, it looks like knife wounds to his hands, I don't know that would have been enough, for you to go driving hours to get to a clinic. Like, the whole mentality of it just seems like something is very, very off with all this.
He is. He's very off. And I can't imagine missing the warning signs here, because there must have been a lot. But I get the impression from this man that he's number one. What is bothering him, whatever he wants, that is what he's going after. And he was hurt, so he was just going to go take care of it.
There's a side of me that's actually even wondering if he wanted to be caught, because it was just leaving the scene that he left behind there. Yeah, he left the heaters on. He was thinking that was going to speed things up. But, come on, being realistic, that your mother's going to be missed from her job. That you've got a matter of days before someone gets into that house. It's not going to take care of all that stuff. So
that was something that bothered me too, was, he was nowhere near a cleanup. He couldn't have got away with this at all.
Yeah.
So it was surprising to me that he just kind of quit in the middle of it and left the state.
Well, and for all that planning, for all of that, it really, I'm so surprised that they didn't try to run an insanity defense. And I'm kind of worried that this lame defense that they did lay out is going to be a play for appeals later and keep him tied up in court for decades to come, which I don't
That's a good point, and it very well could.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, it's really heartbreaking. If you look at pictures of Lisa and Joel, and I'm sure you saw this too.
Yeah.
These people were in love. They were 31 years into their marriage, and they looked like high school kids together in some of those photos, just the way they were smiling and holding each other. And it is really, really heartbreaking. And then to think about that aspect of Joel having to come to a realization that his own son was attacking him and then fighting for his life. It's just terrible. It's really, really terrible.
It is. I don't have enough words for this one. I really don't.
Yeah. So at the time that he's convicted, he is 32 years old. The sentencing says he's going to be in jail at least for 51 years before he's eligible for parole. So practically a life sentence. That would put him at about 83 years old. I don't know if they're going to give him credit for time served for the 4 years in between. So somewhere,
I don't know.
yeah, he'll
Yeah,
either be,
I don't know what they'll decide.
yeah, he'll be 79 or he'll be 83 essentially when that first parole opportunity comes up. And I don't know if people live that long in the conditions of being incarcerated. I'm really not sure. So it seems like it's practically a life sentence. I'm kind of curious about even the fact that there's a question about if they're going to serve those concurrently or consecutively, especially if they've already kind of laid out that there's going to be, 51 years before he's eligible for parole. Once again, it just sounds like things that could possibly be angled on later for different legal arguments to happen around this. And it sounds like his parents might have told him, we're not going to take care of you anymore. We've tried putting you through college for 9 years. You haven't done anything. We're over it. You got to start taking care of yourself. Maybe it was more terrifying for him to actually face that than to even think about being in the jail system, because what's going to happen when he's in the jail system? He's going to have
It's going to be bad.
Well, but he's going to have a roof over his head. He's going to have all his meals paid for. He's not going to still face the responsibility of actually taking care of himself, outside of the fact that, yeah, he'll be paying a sentence for what he did. But yeah,
that's a good point. In this one, I just feel like so many missed opportunities went by for these people. He has got to have some serious issues. And I think all of that plays into the way he acted afterward. I almost feel like he's not in touch with reality or sees it like we do.
I definitely get a strong sense of that as well. And the thing is, seeing how his parents supported him in his efforts to become a plastic surgery for 9 years at college, I'm pretty sure if they were aware of any serious issues he was dealing with, that they would have helped him in terms of facing those issues too. So
they seemed like a very loving couple toward their children as well as themselves. So I'm sure if they had any idea, they would have helped him with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just tragic on so many different fronts.
It is.
Oh, anything you wanted to say before we finish this one off?
Not really. Just, I guess, always keep your eyes open. You never know what's going to happen or where it's going to come from. So definitely be aware. Yeah,
definitely. And I guess something just about appreciating all the moments that you do have and every day that you do have, such a tough one. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Christy. We really appreciate your work on this. And now I need to thank some other people. Thank you, PayPal supporters: Susan Alisali, Amanda M. Beard, Meredith Sherwood, Think Mutiny Publishing, and a special thank you to James Reed. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for PayPal, sign up for Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it keeps me here with limited commercials, so I truly appreciate your support. Remember, you can get another Lord and Arts story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. Or I'll see you again here on YouTube on Wednesday with a brand new episode of Searchlight right here on the Lord and Arts channel.